Today on Engine Power, it's our turn on the shared S10 project, but there's a lot to do before the Lime Dime gets some track time.
Welcome to Engine Power and our brand new project. We finally got our hands back on our 97 S10. It was over in the Truck Tech shop where Ryan installed a new cage, brakes, and added wheels and tires to make it a roller. Now it's going to be a truck that's around for quite a while because we're going to use it for different engine combinations and testing in the future.
Since this is going to be a true street strip vehicle, we wanted to keep a little bit of luxury in it, so all the interior went back in. From the headliner and kick panels to the dash and instrument cluster. A Lexan window was riveted in due to the down bars from the cage, and the engine compartment even got a little cleanup too.
The parts we chose to get this truck together are from manufacturers that have tested their product out on the track time and time again, like Calvert Racing suspension systems for leaf spring vehicles. These guys hold the last 6 of 7 world championships in stock eliminator competition. Now down the line, we have a set of Aerospace brakes that are built for the street and the strip, being dubbed their Pro Street system. Now Curry Enterprises sent us a complete 9-inch rear end, and all these plates and brackets will help us get the engine and transmission mounted from competition engineering. Now the first thing we need to do is get the rear end assembled so we can get the truck back to roller status.
Since we'll have engine combinations in this truck that produce a lot more power, a strong rear end is a must. Curry sent us this F9 fabricated housing that has a 3/8-inch thick high form 50 steel mounting flange for the third member, 3-inch by 250 wall axle tubes with big bearing forward ends, and we ordered the leaf spring pads in the stock S10 location so it will be a direct bolt-in. The third member is filled with a Detroit locker. It allows 100% traction at both tires under power, but it allows the axles to turn independently for cornering. To make the connection from the diff to the drive shaft is a set of 456 gears.
With silicone on the mounting face, we can drop the third member on, making sure it goes on the studs even. Now the 35 spline axles Curry supplied with the rear end can slide in, and this has us ready for the rear brakes. Aerospace designed this brake system for vehicles weighing less than 4,000 pounds. Now the heart of the system is this billet aluminum 4-piston caliper. Now the hat is pre-drilled for multiple bolt patterns and a 1/2-inch stud. It's connected to an 11 3/4-inch vented rotor, and all that gets stopped by Hawk racing pads.
First, the bracket that retains the axle will get installed and tightened, followed by the caliper bracket. Now, the vented rotor and hat can be put into place. Finally, the billet aluminum caliper filled with Hawk pads can wrap around the rotor. Our S10 faces the same challenge as any other street race rig with stock suspension, getting power to the track. But John Calvert designed a system in his garage about 20 years ago that fits the bill. Building upon that success, Calvert Racing Company was created. They are now the go-to source for drag race suspension components, specializing in making leaf spring cars hook hard and launch straight with big HP.
The rear end needs to be supported by jack stands for the install. With it in position, we can attach the split monoleaf to the frame. The rear eye uses a urethane bushing, and this spring has a 200-pound weight. It's substantially lighter than multi-leafs for big unsprung weight savings. The front eye of the spring is filled with an aluminum bushing. This is all captured in the Caltrax pivot assembly. With the roll pin contacting the upper surface of the spring, we can apply grease to the steel insert and push it through the spring eye, and attach the assembly to the front hanger. With the 9/16-inch lowering block placed on the spring's locator dowel, the truck can be raised so the rear end rests on that block. Up a little more. Oh. Using 2 U-bolts, the rear shock plate can be mounted and the bolts torqued to 75 foot-pounds. The rear shocks are Calvert Racing CR series. Now these are a 9-way adjustable constructed out of a heavy-duty steel tube. Now the large adjustment knob makes it easy to make changes while they're still bolted up under the vehicle.
With the shock attached to the frame in the stock location, the bottom can be attached to the Caltrax shock plate. We'll apply some anti-seize to the rod ends and thread them all the way onto the transfer link bars, and attach the front rod end to the pivot assembly. Holding the rear rod end, carefully rotate the bar so they thread out equally until it lines up with the rear mounting point.
The preload still needs to be set on the Caltrax system, but we can't do any of that until the engine, transmission, bed, even the driver is sitting in the vehicle. So we're going to go ahead and shift our focus to the front of the truck, the engine bay, and get the engine mounts all built and put in, but we can't do that until after this break.
Up next, we test fit the 427 we built, all 509 horsepower of it.
We're back and ready to get our big block put in the S10's engine bay. So we're going to use an aluminum front plate, a poly transmission mount, and a fore and aft limiter to get our 427 mounted. Now that helps us in several ways. The first, we get to put the engine wherever we want it, preferably as close to the firewall as possible. Second, we eliminate the factory engine mounts, which gains us tons of header clearance. And third, we can mount relays or even catch cans to these plates. So the first thing we're going to do is get the engine lowered in the bay and just get an idea of what we have to take care of. We know some slight fabrication is going to be needed to get the engine mounted.
All right, a little bit more.
Now the biggest one is to the cross member for oil pan clearance. But don't be intimidated. It's way easier than you think.
Plenty of room back there. Okay, stop, okay.
And we're going to show you with tools you would use at home. Engine needs to come to the driver's side about 1.5 inches.
How's that?
Looks good, looks good.
We need to remove about 2 inches from the cross member. Marking it on both sides will let us know where to make the cut. Now we can pull the engine out and get busy with the cutoff wheel. Now, I say if you want, we can make a larger cut. Yep. The idea is to remove enough material for clearance, but not go too crazy and sacrifice the cross member's strength. Definitely plenty of room. Take your time here and let the cutting wheel do the work. Your turn. You should be able to remove all of it in one piece. No plasma cutter, no problem. Due to our oil pan's drain plug location, we decided to remove a second piece of cross member so we can service the engine in the truck.
Using a piece of cardboard to cut a template, we can trace the areas out we want to fill back in. Then mark them out on a piece of 3/16 steel plate and cut the pieces to be used. Now the middle one will be the first to go in. I'll tack it in multiple spots to make sure it stays put. Now we'll fit the side pieces in place and tack them the same way. Finally, burn everything in, alternating where you weld. This will help avoid the steel from warping due to excessive heat in one area.
Since we went 1 inch wider than the oil pan on both sides of the cross member, we're confident it's going to drop right in.
Good?
Yep, go ahead. You have to come back. Come back, stop. All right, okay.
Now we're ready to get the transmission mated to the engine. Now that's going to allow us to get it in position, set our driveline angle, and even get the transmission crossmember built. Now the transmission we're using is a TH400 from TCI. They built it for us with a trans brake, a reverse shift pattern, and out back a 4-inch tail housing that accepts a large yoke. Up front is a 300M input shaft, and inside is a bunch of performance parts, like Red Eagle clutches, a modified front drum, and they even increase the line pressure to prevent clutch slippage. So needless to say, this transmission is going to handle any bit of power we put to it from that 427. This is for mock-up only, so we're leaving the converter out. All right, Pat, here we come.
All right.
We'll bolt the trans to the block and leave the jack under it for now.
With the assembly in position, we can attach frame tabs to the front engine plates with ARP bolts, then weld them to the frame. Back underneath, we can attach the trans mount to the tranny and bolt the competition engineering transmission mount bracket to it. With the crossmember cut to length, we can tack it to the bracket. With the tube square, weld on the frame rail tabs and mark the crossmember where the hole intersects the tabs. Now drill the hole and weld the sleeve in. The final step is to bolt it in and finish welding the tabs.
Next, the bed's reinstalled and loaded.
I can't really see the truck.
That's okay, trust me.
We're back and on a mission to get this truck fired up by the end of the show. Now we're ready to put the bed in place, but need to cut the pass-through holes for the cage. First, I'm taking a measurement from where the bed sat on this pad to the center of the pipe, which is 5 1/8. Now transfer that measurement to the bed and mark the area where the hole needs to be. We'll make the cut with an 1 3/4 saw. Because of the angle, we'll have to oval them out as well. With both openings in place, we'll remove the tires and test fit the bed.
Yeah, back end's gotta come up.
Our engine hoist won't let it tilt enough, so with the help of corn-fed number 1 and 2,
There we go.
we'll tip it in and lay it down.
Oh boy.
Beautimous, guys. The holes need a little more removed. Now, it fits like it should. Let's go back some. I'm lined up. I mean, I could start every bolt right now.
Oh.
Very, very cool. With the wheels and tires back on, all right, we can tighten the bed to the frame. Inside the bed, the down bars go back in. Now, these interlocking tube clamps have a machine tolerance fit and will ensure the tube stays together. It's a truck again, and I might have to say it's coming along better than expected. Because these S10s are so light in the back half, we need to add weight where it counts. So we're going to be mounting 2 fuel cells in the bed, a 15-gallon for pump gas and a 4-gallon for race gas when we run the nitrous. Now joining them will be the battery and the radiator, because we're going to mount the cooling system in the bed to get all that weight off the nose. So basically, in layman's terms, this thing's going to hook like a mule with the cow tracks. Because the pump gas cell is the largest, it's getting mounted first. Now it's going behind the axle center line. The sump has to be recessed in the bed, so it's being marked first. Now the opening can be cut out using a cutoff wheel. The cell can go back in position, and we have plenty of clearance. Now make sure you know what's underneath before you cut.
With our straps made and painted, we can secure the cell to the bed. Our small cell is from Summit Racing, and it's being positioned next to the big one. Doing it this way makes it easier to plumb the lines to the pump and keeps the weight behind the axle. Finally, we can mount the battery box. This is a Summit Racing universal box that houses several battery sizes. It comes with everything we need to install it. Filling it is this newly released Duralast ProPower AGM series battery. It provides power to vehicles with lots of accessories, plus it has greater durability in extreme conditions. It also recharges faster than a standard lead battery. They're available in 9 sizes and have a full 3-year replacement warranty. To mount the radiator in the bed, we're using a frame made of 1-inch square aluminum. Threaded inserts are installed, and ARP bolts fasten the two together. This whole setup weighs 35 pounds without any coolant.
Oh, that's nice.
Getting that off the nose of the truck
Okay.
will add to the weight in the bed. Solid. And help us with traction.
Feel real sturdy?
Yeah, you could pick the truck up with it, I'm sure.
With the cells, all the aluminum back there, that thing's perfectly in line with the back of the window, so nothing's off level. Nice, nice, nice. To keep our 427 from moving around during hard acceleration or hard braking, we have to install a limiter kit from Competition Engineering. Now this is going to keep the front plates from flexing and eventually cracking. The block mounting tube will go on first. With the chassis tabs attached to the rod end and the limiter tube, I can tack it in place. Remove it from the truck and weld all the seams. That was the last thing we will weld to the frame rails up front, so the transmission and the 427 are coming out for the final cleanup and painting of the engine bay. Due to some leftover media from the blasting, the lime dime is getting one more bath. And like the frame rails out back, The fronts are getting the same treatment. Duplicolor self-etching primer, covered up by their engine enamel in gray, which is a great backdrop to see if any leaks show up.
The 427 goes in for good with some unique headers.
We're back and ready for final assembly of Lime Dime. We're on a tight timetable and things are going to go together quickly, so pay close attention. Our Stealth 427 goes back in for the final time. The fore and aft limiter is bolted up as well. Back underneath, the new TCI mini starter can be installed first due to a tight fit. Next up is their 153 tooth flex plate. It's SFI approved for lots of abuse. TCI's 10-inch Ultimate Street Fighter converter with a 3800 stall speed will link the engine to the trans. Perfect.
With it seated, the TCI TH400 can go in for good.
And all the weight gets supported with our freshly painted crossmember. A set of Stainless Works 2 1/4 inch up and forward turbo headers with a 3 1/2 inch collector will let us avoid hacking up the frame trying to get a conventional set to fit. Plus, this gets us one step ahead for another power adder we're planning on down the road. Starting with a 3 1/2 inch V-band clamp from DYNATECH, Pat and I built the exhaust using 3-inch Magnaflow pipe. Now we cut pre-bent pieces and kept suspension travel and a tight fit in mind. Now it may seem like overkill, but it was the easiest route. Try finding a set of headers that fit a lowered big block in a late model S10. Good luck. Now a Y-pipe goes on to house a Doug stainless exhaust cutout. Now they're electric and have a more compact design than the earlier ones. A rotating gate gives a leak-free seal, and don't weld on them. It voids the warranty. To get the tire smoke away from the truck during burnouts, a turn down toward the rear tire. Wrapping up the exhaust is a Magnaflow Race Series muffler. We went as fast as we could, but time is just something we can't fabricate. Now old Lime Dime isn't ready for the road or the track yet, but it will be ready next time.
Whether we're plumbing fuel or cooling systems, we want quality fittings that we can trust. Earl's Performance is our go-to source for AN-style fittings because of their enormous selection. These are the typical ones we'll use, from a Dash 4 all the way up to a Dash 16, and they come in several variations from straights, 45s, 90s, even 180s. If they're good enough for John Force to put on his funny car, I guess that means they're top-notch. They're available where quality performance parts are sold.
If you're into Chrysler small blocks and like saving cash, Summit Racing has an Intake Combo Pro Pack for your Mopar. Now a Wyand Action Plus intake manifold with an operating range from idle to 6,000 RPM is the heart of the system. Now this is a direct replacement, and it even accepts stock or aftermarket carburetors. Now the reason they call it a combo is it comes with Felpro gaskets, carb studs, and intake bolts for a quick install. The price, right at $256.
Here's a great addition to that Pro Pack, Summit Racing's very own Street and Strip carburetor. Years of R&D and testing have produced this slick piece that has great throttle response and street drivability. 100% wet flow tested and ready to run, it features an all aluminum body and a one-piece top with no gasket under the fuel level for leak-free performance. It also has an easy adjust electric choke, quick change vacuum secondary, and even comes with gaskets, hardware, and a DVD for simple hookup and tuning, and it'll only set you back about $330. Well, that's it for us. We'll see you next time.